first of all, thank you for having me today. I always enjoy having the opportunity to present my limited knowledge from a wide range of experiences that I've had in the last few years. Um, so, what I'd like to talk to everybody about today is, what can the government do for me? What kind of opportunities available to myself who perhaps is thinking of starting a business at this point or is already working on a small business and but I want to scale. So what kind of tools can I take advantage of to help me get to the next level? So I appreciate everybody taking the time today to listen to this as well. I know that we're all going through some interesting and challenging times, and I hope that once we get through this, new opportunities can develop, and everyone here could take advantage of that and truly thrive. So a bit about. Is it still on the same screen?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Here we go.
Okay, so a bit about myself. So my name's Jose Aguilera. My educational background. At heart, though, I've always been fascinated by business.
Jose, your volume dropped off.
Oh. Try to speak a little louder.
Jose,
Yeah. Can you hear me?
we can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Can you hear me now?
now we can hear you.
Okay, that's odd. Sorry. So again, my background's in engineering. Did you guys hear that part?
Nope. Continue on. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So education-wise, engineering, but my fascination has always been in well, not just engineering in civil, but as well as IT, in business in general, and keeping up to date with what's going on in the world in terms of technological advancements, and see where we can take advantage of, of the new technology. In particularly, I would focus on in civil engineering, which is a little slower to adapt to newer technologies. However, it is a heavily regulated industry, so for that reason, sometimes the risks of developing, let's say, a new app and see how it works out, you couldn't really apply that to a bridge and see, how many lives would you lose if we tried this new product? It doesn't work that way. So, anyways, fascinating industry, but I've slowly been working my way out of it, and my fascination is data, and it's a bit of the focus of my presentation today. I currently work for, as was mentioned, for the federal government at the Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Department. I'm a data analyst for a team called BizPal, which stands for Business Permit and License. I'll mention what they do a little later. I was formerly with Canada Revenue Agency as a research and technology advisor. So I was essentially a technical auditor for the Scientific Research and Experimental Development Program, otherwise known as SHRED. Before that, I worked for the City of Ottawa as a project manager, and before that, I worked in the private sector in some of the some private engineering firms. As Tim mentioned, I do have an entrepreneurial heart, but I did actually co-found a company called Fractal Tectonics, which was developing modular paving slabs to be used for sidewalks and roads. Now, enough about me. I want to cover three main topics today, which is how do we find opportunities that can give me a bit of an advantage, a competitive advantage in terms of getting whether it's grants or certain loans, or even finding what programs qualify for because of my unique business, or as well as what kind of tools are available online. As you may know, it can be quite expensive to pay for some of these analytics, economic analytic reports, actually quite expensive. So I'll show you some of the tools that are available and that are free that you can take advantage of right away before perhaps needing to make that bigger investment to get more specialized information that can help you make a better business decision. And lastly, I'll talk about some of the funding opportunities, where you can find them. So in terms of finding opportunities, again, I should also mention that these are my personal opinion and experiences. It's not, although I work for the government, they do not represent the perspective or step of approval. So these are things that I found are particularly helpful. First, it really depends on the size of your business, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But if you're looking at something quite national, then you really should take a look at the federal budgets that come out every spring. Because in the budgets, you'll have an idea of what kind of priorities the government is focusing on. And there's two key things that I've noticed. There's sometimes a targeted audience. So who are these programs for? What are they trying to promote? For example, the first example on the right here is the women entrepreneurship strategy. So, nearly $2 billion are being allocated to help women start and grow their businesses. So I may particularly not be able to apply for that, but maybe my wife can, maybe my sister can, maybe my mother can. And I think those are great initiatives. And I've looked at some of the data, and it shows that there is, thanks to these kind of programs, you find a certain uptick in interest from female entrepreneurs. And I think that's a great thing. The second is targeted initiatives. So with, of course, the environment being at the forefront of key world challenges that we are trying to address, as expected, there's a lot of funding being allocated to develop green technology or improve technology, whether it's solar technology or looking at developing technologies that take advantage of waves and converting that to energy. You'll find that these kinds of initiatives can help you if you happen to be, let's say, a chemical engineer or environmental engineer, or you service some of these technologies with, you name it, whatever developments that you may have created. But yeah, these are just some of the examples that I have. The other possible source for insight is, of course, the provincial budgets, where certain provinces are obviously targeting certain industries. Alberta, for example, can be the oil sands, and that's an opportunity if, again, you are developing technology that can help perhaps make the extraction process more efficient or cleaner. And lastly, perhaps you're not thinking of necessarily working at the provincial or national level, but in your own municipality, there can be initiatives that the municipalities are trying to tackle. For example, I think of my example is working with pavement. Pavement is something that's always costly. Millions of dollars are spent every year in fixing potholes, and it's something that's it's never going to go away. So if you perhaps have some sort of new technology that you'd like to experiment with, and that is key, front and center with what the municipality is trying to tackle, then you may have the opportunity to work on a pilot project. Actually, case in point, when I was working with Fractal Tectonics, I actually met Rob Ford, and he actually gave me the time of day to meet with some of his senior engineers and to talk about the possibility of doing a pilot project with technology that I was helping to develop. That's a story for another day. The next thing to mention is when you're looking at taking advantage of some of these programs. There are certain objectives that at the end of the day, the government has. So if you're looking at it from the um, federal or provincial point of view, their focus, of course, is on economic growth. So if you, to give something like, if you have, let's say, a small coffee shop, that is not necessarily something that the federal or provincial government is going to help you grow. They're thinking, okay, perhaps if you're exporting some sort of product that is made in Canada, yes, when you're thinking of exporting it to our neighbors or overseas, then that's definitely something that they'd be more than happy to help you out, especially if there's a demand. So for these kinds of programs, funding programs, you have to think at a national, international level. And what they definitely want is the company to grow. Creating jobs at the end of the day is tremendously important. So if you're ever applying for some of these much larger funding programs, it's crucial that you convey exactly how it is that you're going to create jobs, you know, how and nationally, not just perhaps at a local level, especially if you were talking about provinces or territories that obviously unemployment may be higher. If you've found some sort of solution to help create jobs, that is definitely going to go a very long way. And of course, the same thing with the municipal level. At the end of the day, you want, you know, your mayors, your councilors are trying to develop the economic growth of their wards or the municipality, and that's always going to be very important. I put a point here too, is that at a local level, I mentioned the pavement, but if there are some key objectives that these municipalities have that you can help them save money, that's something that you can use to your advantage when convincing them to at least do, say, a pilot project, such as I mentioned before, roads or sidewalks, and improving that, making it more durable. So the next topic I want to talk about is what kind of tools are available for you as a, whether you're an entrepreneur just thinking of starting up a company, or if you're an existing business and you're looking to diversify and perhaps. So one of the ones that I'm a big fan of this site is called Trading Economics. It's not actually a product by the federal government, but if you're looking at global data, this is a great place to find, for example, how your country is doing as in terms of, I put up this slide here when it discusses the unemployment rate, and obviously, as you can tell, it's shot up quite a bit. But what's great about this site is that you find economic data for virtually every country in the world. So if you're looking at exporting or importing products, it's definitely a good go-to to help you develop a business plan or a business case. In terms of the economic trade data, in terms of products coming in and out of Canada, the next tool I'm a big fan of is the Trade Data Online. So it's part of Innovation Canada's, and I'm sure we can share this slide out. Essentially what this tool does is allows you to see by HS code the products coming in. For example, if you want to know how much maple syrup, I think this is the example I use here, how much maple syrup is sold this is a great tool for you to be able to use to see, hey, you know what, maybe I'm noticing trends because you look at historical data here too. I'm noticing trends of certain countries every year increasing their demand for this particular product, and the prices are outrageous. I think I could beat this. So it can allow you to visualize and see what kind of opportunities you can have, and vice versa about products coming into Canada. So great tool. Again, this is not exhaustive of the kind of federal level tools available. I just wanted to share some of them. But Nexus Statistics Canada, I mean, that is a phenomenal, albeit a little difficult at times to follow, but their site is just filled with unbelievable amount of data. And the census is a great place to look at, because if you're thinking of starting, let's say, a small coffee shop or a gym, a yoga studio in, I don't know, here in Barhaven, Ottawa, then by looking at the census data, you can get an idea of what kind of average salaries and distribution of age and gender in a particular area. So that can give you a really good idea, particularly when you're developing a business plan, the kind of probabilities or of success, because you have actual Statistic Canada kind of stamped of approval data to help with your business plan. And when you're thinking about bringing this to a bank, well, that's the kind of information that's extremely valuable that can give you definitely a better chance to proving your point, or to help you achieve your objective. There's a great YouTube video by Olivier Charbonneau, who's a librarian with the University of Concordia, that shows you step by step how to look at the data. He has some other great videos as well about looking at Statistics Canada data outside of just the census, but I thought it'd be extremely valuable to share his YouTube link. Lastly, there's also the municipal data sets. Showing the census here, this site. Municipal data sets, with the rise of open data, a lot of governments, including the municipal governments, are trying to now share some of their data. And, for example, a good success story would be with the city of Ottawa. They've opened up their data, and they have an API now to share the geographic location of buses. And I don't know about you, but I love that app because it's great to know I don't have to wait too long when it's minus 40 degrees outside, and I can just time, my commute a lot better, instead of what wasn't too far ago where you're just waiting for the bus and you call the 1-800 number, et cetera. Anyways, so the municipal data sets are they're still, from what I've seen, it's still, depending on the city, is still a little primitive, but what's nice is that they're open. I know the city of Ottawa is open at you requesting a certain type of data you'd like to see. So if you're thinking about an app, for example, and what, I wish I just had this particular data. I know they collect it. Why not request it? They may open it up and allow it to be publicly available, perhaps through an API, and you can develop applications that can help certain communities or products that that there's a demand for.
Yeah, they have a GIS there. Sorry, Jose, they do have a GIS that you can request an API to integrate your app or your platform to.
Yes, yeah, that's for I guess
actually
that's
pretty good.
Yeah, but I was actually talking. No problem. But yeah, that's great. The thing is, there's also other, let's say, economic data that they're at the moment not sharing. The issue is that Statistics Canada has to be very careful with not being too granular about their data. They have to aggregate it, and there may be certain data that they don't collect because it's outside of the scope of perhaps what they're doing, but perhaps the municipality has it. So it's still worth reaching out to them and seeing, exploring what kind of data they have and if they'd be open to sharing it. But yeah, thank you for that. Now, as I mentioned, this is only some of the available resources, but I think they're extremely powerful and informative information that you can take advantage of, at least to start your business plan. But let's assume now you've developed that and you want to now start your business. I really like what Corporations Canada has done, because this particular link that I have here actually goes to a section, was it just one click away from their main landing page, where they actually show videos of explaining how to incorporate your business and looking at different scenarios. So I think that they're definitely worth watching if if it's the first time for you. I know it could be daunting to fill out any application for anything, let alone, of course, an important legal document that's part of the federal government. I didn't include any links here, but provincial, of course, you can register. The different provincial sites have registration information. But as I mentioned before, BizPal is another great site. I currently work with this group, so I'm not just tooting my own horn, but so with BizPal, what it is this particular site, which is bizpal.ca. If you're thinking of opening up any sort of business, whether it's a chip truck, to a yoga studio, to a sign store, it doesn't matter. You go to the website and you input your geographic location, and also you start typing in what kind of business you're interested in opening up. It'll actually create a drop down where you can select the particular industry it is that you're interested in starting a business for. And what it'll actually provide you is your NAICS, which stands for the North American, Industry Classification System. So whenever you start a corporation, you actually have to specify what your business is about, and they'll assign you the correct NAICS code. But if you ever want to know, just for fun, because that NAICS code is really important to know, because you can find extremely good information in Statistics Canada, because they use that classification to aggregate data. So if you know what NAICS you're a part of, then you can find kind of tailored information about that. But so it's a great site for finding out that kind of information. But then what you'll get once you've filled out the two items, the location and your NAICS, is all the permits, the municipal, the local level permits and licenses that you may have to get. So there's, aside from registration, if you're opening up, let's say, a restaurant, you may need to have a permit to have a sign outside of your place of business. Or, of course, if you're going to serve alcohol, then you're going to need a liquor license. So it's a great location. It's another kind of one-stop shop for permits and licenses. And it's quite exhaustive. At the moment, about 79% of, I believe, all municipalities cover 79% of Canadian citizens is covered in BizPal. So it is quite exhaustive.
Jose, is there any support for digital companies, not just brick and mortars?
That's a good question. There's a lot there. I will make a note of that. But what particular like permits or licenses would you are you thinking?
Yeah, just inquisitive.
Okay. Yeah. I do apologize. I have typically looked at the kind of brick and mortar type of stores, but yeah, I'm not sure. But there's literally thousands of license and permits there. So moving on to the last one, kind of saving the best for last, is, okay, great. You have a business now. You've done all your homework and you know that you have something that can definitely create jobs. It can, revenue is great. Maybe there's export opportunities, but I just need some funding. So one caveat that I'll mention is that grants are typically the most in demand type of programs or services that are sought after. But as you can imagine, most people go that route first. That's the first go-to. That's what they want, obviously, to help start their business. But because it is in such high demand, the competition becomes quite high. And that's why I was mentioning earlier that it's important to look at what are the mandates, what are the focuses that the governments, all level of governments are looking at. Because if you meet that, it'll make it that much easier for you to get approved. And yeah, that is the reality. What you're more likely to get are loans of sorts. Now, they can be extremely favorable loans that banks would have a hard time competing. Some of these loans are actually managed by banks, but there's more flexibility. You may have, for example, a 1 year or a multi-year loan, but the first year you only pay the interest. That can be extremely helpful if you're just starting out and you really need to save your cash flow for equipment or wages, etc. So in budget 2018 or 2017, the government mandated a sort of one-stop shop location where all of the programs and services, originally just at the federal level, can be housed. So instead of just Googling and not really knowing exactly what you're Googling, because there's so many out there, there's hundreds and hundreds across Canada. And then when you include the provincial and then municipal level, there's thousands of them available. So if you go to innovation.canada.ca, and here you go, here's a snippet of what the website looks like. And the good thing is that recently they've actually added some programs for the COVID-19 support for businesses, which I'll get to. But essentially, when you get to the website, they'll ask you to fill out like a questionnaire where it asks you, where are you geographically located? What are you looking for? How much are you looking for, if it's funding, for example? And what are your main goals? So in this example here, and sorry, then it'll ask you a bit more about what your specific business is about. So the more refined your answers are, the better the results. And interestingly enough, more importantly, the less results you get, which is actually a good thing because it could be quite a bit of information overload. Now you can actually skip the whole questionnaire and just click select all and you'll see everything that's available at the moment. I should mention that it's not all encompassing. It's at the moment, federal and provincial. There aren't any of the municipal programs available, but there is interest to add them as well. So what you'll get here is kind of a tier result. At the moment right now, they've added this section for the COVID-19 support. So you'll see here, help to keep your employees on payroll, commercial rent support for small businesses. So these are programs that, of course, are temporary. And when hopefully soon we do get through this, and we will, these programs obviously won't exist. But then you'll have other programs like funding or expert advice. For example, NRC has a few dozen research facilities that you can use. Usually, it's at a cost basis. So if you wanted to, for example, do a testing in a wind tunnel, you'll have access to these facilities, and more importantly, as well as the experts that work at these facilities. So this is something that you can take advantage of, and I encourage you to take a look at the site and play around. The nice thing about it is that you can actually create a login You can sign in so that whenever there are changes to the particular program that, let's say, you've starred, you notice here, there's these tiles, there's a star at the corner. That's basically favoriting your program. So whenever there are changes, you'll be notified via email. As well, the email button that you see at the top right side, you can email yourself the results of all of these for that particular story. And you can play around with the stories. Your needs may change. And the results, I should mention, don't necessarily mean that you qualify for them, but it'll provide you more information, at least in one location, so that you can click on these tiles. It'll pop, a screen below will pop out, and you'll have more information about the program. And if you think it applies, you can click on it. And if it doesn't, then that's fine. You've saved some time, and you can actually X them out so that it refines the results. Lastly, let's say you find that some of these programs, you are eligible for, you're a company that's growing at a pretty good pace, and you're looking at expanding internationally, and you just want to talk to somebody. This other program is the Innovation Advisors. It's actually a service from formerly with the National Research Council. Now it's with Innovation, Science, and Economic Development. And what it is a group of experienced businessmen and women who have either been in higher positions in corporations, or they themselves have started and perhaps sold businesses. And you can meet with them and get like a one-on-one tailored solution. Now, there is a bit of a screening process, and at the moment, I should mention that because of what's going on with the virus, they are at full capacity, and they've been focused on other priorities. But nonetheless, it is something worth to consider in the future if you would like to meet with them and find out perhaps a little more detail about a particular program that you're interested in applying for. And they may or may not have a rapport with some of these program, we'll say, owners, the people that actually run these programs, whether it be at the provincial or federal level. And they can get an idea of, hey, you know what, this business you're working on is exactly what program X is looking for, and I'd be happy to introduce you. So it's a way to kind of build that rapport that will get you that introduction. Now, this is not necessarily how every scenario works out. It may be that, you know what, you guys are doing really great, but you still have a few milestones to achieve before you should apply to this program. So it's a great bit of guidance that you can get, and it's free. That's the other wonderful thing. So, but yeah, that's in a nutshell, that's what I want to discuss. I hope I've been help provide a bit of insight